Hi, welcome back to Spirits of Fashion. My name is Ren, and I'm filming today the day before Halloween. So, Halloween Eve, if you will. It's my favorite holiday of the year, and I've been celebrating really since September. I just really get into this time of year. We've had a beautiful fall up here in Vermont. And weather's been a little warmer than I'm used to, than many of us are used to. But we had a lot of sunshine, and so we really got to see the foliage in all its glory. I hate to see the month end, but we also have the holidays to look forward to, which is great. So I was thinking about content for today, and my husband mentioned, why don't you talk about 50 years ago when it was election time? What were people wearing then? And I thought, what a great idea. So we're looking at, 74, 75 being 50 years ago. I was in high school and then college. So 74, I was a junior, and 75, I was a senior. And then that's when the same year I started college at URI. So I can remember a lot. Yes, I lived through that time, and I remember a lot about what I wore. So we're going to stick right around the mid 70s like that and talk about what was happening. And I do have a few pieces that I pulled from my collection. Again, any one year can blend into another year, but in general, the sort of psychedelic styles of the 60s did bleed into the early 70s, and then other colors and other styles started to come in too before we hit the disco era, which was later 70s. So I'm going to stick in that middle ground for today. The 70s was interesting because of the crazy synthetics, and one of which I am wearing today. This is a very typical 70s polyester shirt. It happens to fit me. I don't remember where I bought it, but it's pretty awesome. It's definitely 70s. And I remember my high school boyfriend, so 74 and 75, he wore the really shiny shirts. Guys wore them back then, and they had all kinds of crazy prints on them too. So it was really fun. It was a fun time for fashion. And so I do remember that very, very clearly. The mini skirt, of course, which was started in the 60s, also bled into the early 70s and became hot pants when really the skirts couldn't get any shorter. So now you have these hot pants combinations, short lived, but early 70s, and they sort of faded out. But the maxi skirts that came alongside the mini skirts, people said, can't we get rid of these mini skirts? Enough's enough. So they tried the midi, which was calf length, which would become popular actually in the 80s. But in the 70s, it wasn't a big hit. But the maxi was, not only in dresses and skirts, but also in coats. I remember long wool coats being maxis. And it was really quite fabulous, actually. And they did last throughout the decade for the most part. But there were all kinds of styles coming in, such as what people now call the penny lane coat, which was really more in the early 70s. Think about the fur trim or the fake fur trim, some embroidery. Oftentimes the coats were suede and they were a little longer. Was a very popular style. And but what I pulled out today were some pieces that I liked, and it was again earlier in the decade, because by the time the middle of the decade came, these really wide leg pants were not going away entirely, but they were starting to be replaced by a thinner leg. And I know this for a fact because when I was a junior, I had a good friend through dance, and she turned me on to Levi corduroys. Okay. So corduroys and jeans by Levi's were fabulous. They were wonderfully made. But she had started wearing these straight legs. And I'm like, wow, that's something. We've been wearing bell bottoms and really wide leg, what we used to call elephant pants, earlier on. And people were still wearing a wider leg. But she sort of was earlier in the trend. And so I remember my first job was at a store called Child World in Pawtucket, East Providence, I guess, Rhode Island. And it's no longer there. But I remember thinking I was so cool. I was wearing my straight leg corduroys, and they were laughing at me in there. My coworkers, look what you're wearing. I said, hey, they're coming along. And sure enough, before long, everybody was wearing straight legs. So things did change, but they were gradual, as most things tended to be back then. Now things change, it seems like every 5 minutes. But the first pair I would like to show you is a pair of wide leg, high waisted, which, boy, I tell you, when you get to this age, and this is for my seniors, high waist is where it's at, man. I mean, I used to wear hip huggers. They called them hip huggers, not low rise back then. Really short rise. But I was young. I could get away with it. As I've gotten older, it's uncomfortable to wear those. The high waist, which come and goes every 2 seconds, it seems now, those are my preference. I don't care if they're out of style again. I'm comfortable in them. You can tuck in your shirts. You can belt them. They're much more pulled together. This was a 70s pant that I found at I believe it was I want to say a consignment store. I can't remember exactly where I got them. Could have been a thrift store, but they are this velveteen fabric, so not like a silk velvet, but a velveteen, and the colors of the 70s. As we got into the mid 70s, the greens and burgundies and deep reds stuck around. That was popular. So the darker reds and different colors of green, but the avocado green from the 60s sort of stuck around. And these are very, very wide leg. Hopefully you can see that. And they are wonderful. Actually, they should now fit because they fit everywhere but the waist. Like I said, you get to a certain age, ladies of a certain age, you know what I'm talking about. I was able to move the button because the button was way over. So I said, hey, I want to wear these. These are fantastic. When I do my thrifting with vintage and secondhand styles for my groups, I wear these and everybody loves them because they are a statement piece. They're saying something. And I think of them as timeless in terms of my age now. Someone in, say, high school might look and say, oh, you've got to be kidding me. But somebody of my age feels like I can wear whatever I want because who cares? And that's what I tell my seniors. Or women over 50, whatever. Anyone who's feeling that they've become invisible, you wear a pair of these babies, you're not invisible anymore. But as long as you feel fabulous in them, that's what matters. So this is the first thing I pulled out. Second one is a pair of pants I did get at a vintage store quite a while ago. And it was from a woman who had a store in Providence, and she ended up being a vendor in our store when we had Nostalgia in Providence. For those of you who don't know this, my husband and I opened an antiques and collectibles and vintage store in Providence, Rhode Island, in the historic East Side area of Wickenden Street. Now that store is still there. Shout out to Jimmy, who bought it from us, a very good friend of ours. And it's still there, and it's 3 floors, and it's all vendor-filled booths. But I got these not from that store, but from a woman who became a vendor. And there was this terrific young man who was wearing, skinny pants, but with a wide sort of a bell, if I remember correctly, and platform shoes. Oh, he was wonderful. And I brought these up. At the time, they fit me. And he said, I tried those on. They didn't fit. I said, you're this big. How could they not? But I don't know. But they didn't fit. But I grabbed them. Now, these are the same deal, closer to early 70s, but bleeding into the mid 70s. High waist, as you can see, and with this great embroidery in that rust color, which was another big 70s color. This embroidery was popular. Now, in the 60s, a lot of people did their own embroidery on their jeans, but these were not. These were bought this way, as far as I know. They do have a tag. Yes, they do. Let me see if I can see the tag. It says, it's just the washing directions. These no longer fit my waist, unfortunately, but oh man, they are so cool, and they are definitely of the period. Another thing that was popular, 74, 75, was the leftover sort of granny dresses, which was a big thing. Some of you may know about Gunny Sacks dresses. They've been hot for a while with resellers. And I think sophomore hop, I'm trying to think if my junior prom, no, not so much. My senior prom, though, was still that granny type dress we called it granny dress. It had a Victorian influence. and it was wonderful. And even my sister, one of my sisters, one got married in 74, one got married in 75, and I was in both weddings. And the second sister who got married in 75, I wish I had a picture, I don't, but our bridesmaids' dresses were that same granny dresses style with the florals and the lace. Wonderful. It was just a beautiful wedding with big picture hats. So I remember that distinctly. My other sister, who was married in 74, we all wore something completely opposite from that. There was a fabric called Kiana, which was a synthetic fabric and kind of shiny and very slinky and clingy. And we all wore peach dresses of this fabric that had a hood attached to it. Very cool. And I wish I had pictures of these, but unfortunately I don't. But you can sort of picture it if you know anything about that era. I have a granny dress. It's not gunny sacks, but it is a fantastic dress. Jerry G, I think it says, New York. And I got this in town. There's a woman who does embroidery on t-shirts and sweatshirts and such, but she also had this hanging outside, and it had been out there for a while, and it is vintage. It is from the 70s, and I just thought I had to have this, and I think I ended up paying 15 for it. 18 at the most, and it's in great condition. And that's that small floral that was so big in the 70s around that time. So I thought that was quite cool. I do have a gunny sacks dress too that I found in Quechee, Vermont at a big antiques mall. It was so cool. It was folded up on a shelf in one of the booths, and the woman who ran that booth had a little piece of paper with a note on it that said, I wore this dress in the 1980s to my prom. So, wow, with provenance, you know? So this is the style I'm talking about that was still around. This was Jessica McClintock's Gunny Sacks collection. And it is actually the bridal collection, it says on there. So this is sort of similar to what I wore to my sister's wedding with the small floral print. Very, very popular during that time. So this is definitely a gem, a gunny sacks dress. And I don't remember what I paid, but it was certainly reasonable and very fair. So that is another example of that from that period. Another thing is sort of like the polyester shirt I'm wearing. This was given to me. This was several years ago. I did a senior center, and this woman came up to me, and she had a couple of pieces, and she wanted to give them to me. This is a set. Now, this is a halter. Halters were around still in the mid-70s. They're matching, so all the same polka dot fabric, which talk about classic. This could so be worn now. It has the pants with it. Let me see if I can grab those out of there for you. And that same polka dot material with the wide leg and a zipper in the back. That waistline is really small, so I can forget about wearing these, but that's okay. I use them to show people how fabulous the fashion was back then and to give examples. But you can see it's very light fabric, and it does have the wide leg and the high waist. But it would be worn with the halter and with this adorable jacket that goes over it with the what we call now a dagger collar. This was what I have on. It was popular, especially earlier 70s. And then, but it did stick around for a while. So that collar, and then look at the buttons. The buttons are little flowers. How do you beat that? It's in great condition. It's a short jacket. Of course, you can do that because the pants are high waist. And let's see, it doesn't have a brand. It just has the directions of how to clean it. So I don't see a brand name, but it's certainly a fabulous, fabulous outfit. So I think I could probably get away with the jacket, but the pants, I don't think I'll ever be that thin again. So the last two pieces I have are maxi skirts, and they are wonderful. And either they'd be very colorful or a little bit, more of the browns and oranges and golds and that kind of thing. So let me give you the bright one first. And this is velvet. This is like a beautiful color and such a perfect example of a 70s maxi skirt. Hopefully you can see that all the way down. has a slit in the back. You see that? And gorgeous, gorgeous, with a wide waistband. And it's just, even the zipper is a gold color to match. So these golds, like I said, the deeper greens, sometimes still the avocado greens, some of the burnt orange and browns were still very popular during this decade. So this is just a beautiful piece. I found this in the Queechee Mall as well. There's a woman who does sell a whole booth full of vintage clothing and accessories. So I got it from her for a good price, fair price for sure. And so that is a fun piece. And last but not least is this one. This one I also bought. Oh boy, I really don't remember exactly where I got it, but it is a great piece. It does not have a label. Could have been handmade, or someone could have taken the label out. It does look, sort of does look handmade, not in a bad way, but this is a maxi skirt as well. It's that double knit kind of feeling, that synthetic. That's what the inside looks like. It's not lined. That's the back side of the fabric. So not lined, but a really great example of the colors and the fabric that would have been used in even the mid-70s. So lots of fun garments. Think about the music scene too. I always bring up Freddie Mercury and Queen when we talk about the 70s, because when I saw Bohemian Rhapsody and saw that he, his girlfriend Mary Austin worked at Biba. Biba was a very big part of the 1970s. Everybody who loved those deeper colors that I just showed you, that was Biba's aesthetic. And they sort of started this cool boutique craze over here too in the States, where, the boutiques were kind of dark and they played really cool music. And the colors were those very deep, moody tones. So, cranberry and deep forest green and plum. And the makeup was more influenced by the 20s and 30s than it was by anything to do with 60s or 70s. So that was another big part. So the music industry was also a part of what was going on in fashion. Of course, glam rock was a big thing in the 70s. And so the androgyny of that, of men dressing in lace and having, I know my boyfriend in high school, when we went to the prom, it was a powder blue tux. If he could hear this, he'd kill me for telling people, but powder blue tux with a matching ruffle shirt. And that's what guys did back in the mid 70s. That's what we wore to prom. That's what our boyfriends wore. And with the platform shoes. So that was a big deal. And that was probably 73, 74. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. And please follow me. Spiritsoffashion.com is my website. You can sign up for a free newsletter that I put out every month that tells people where I'm going to be, where I'm going to do my fashion presentations. I have many of them now this season. This is a busy season for me. And you can find out where I'm going to be. So please consider subscribing to that. And I hope everyone enjoys their Halloween. And please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.